Okay, what's up, everybody? What's up? What's up? What's up? So, welcome to today's tutorial. Today, we're going to look at some quick and basic methods to create signals in Godot. Now, signals are powerful. They're a powerful and quick way of adding functions in GD script and quickly connecting nodes. So I want to show you this example of this game I created, or the example I created. I'm going to run it. And as you can see, we have our player, and then we have a box, okay, which changes colors when we land on it. We have this mouse button press, which generates a random color, and as you could tell, after 10 seconds, a timer popped up. Okay, so again, let me run it one more time. We're going to work on this today, and this is just a quick way to show you this is body entered, okay? And this is our pressed signal. And then when the game over pops up, this is our timeout signal. So let's get ready with a blank canvas and get ready to tackle these signals. And once again, if you find this information helpful, as always, make sure you like and subscribe. And thanks for allowing me to help you today. Okay, so today, in order to explain our signals, we're going to work in 2D. So the first thing you're going to do is go ahead and let's switch over to our 2D viewer. Okay, and let's create a 2D scene. So we can create a root node here, and it's going to be called node 2D. So the first thing we're going to do is change that to signals 2D. Okay, and this is our scene root node, and everything that we create after this will be noded to that. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is go ahead and let's create a static body 2D. And this is just a very simple way that we can create some boundaries and kind of give our scene a little bit of shape. All right, so first things first, let's create a static body. I'm going to rename this boundary. And of course, we get an error because we have to give it a shape. So let's go ahead and give it a collision shape. And with all collision shapes, we have to define the shape. So we're going to define it as a rectangle. Okay. And we can just resize along the x-axis. And then we're going to, if you drag and then begin to hold shift, we can actually just along the y-axis, set this up, and we're going to call this the floor. Okay. And let's go ahead and add a quick sky. So a little color rect. And we're just trying to keep things in order so we can see. And we'll do a quick resize for this. And let's change the color to a nice sky blue. That feels good. Okay, and with this, let's call this one sky CR, just to remind us that it's a color rect. Okay. Now, what we're trying to do is we have to add in our first obstacle, or really our only obstacle, right? So what we can do is go back, make sure we're noded to our boundary, and then we're going to add in another collision shape. And of course, we have to give it a shape. Very repetitive motions with our world building today. So we're going to give it a shape, and then we're going to resize. And we're going to call this one block CS. So that we know that's a block collision shape. Let's move it over a little bit, give our player a little bit of room. Okay, so block CS. And then the next thing we need for this is a color rect, right? So we want to define what this object is. So we're going to add a color rect to this. Now, if we move it down here, we can actually renode this color rect and center it, and then resize to match our collision shape. Okay. Let's go ahead and rename this one block CR. And then the last piece that we need for this block is to create an area 2D that will allow us to detect an action that will then send a signal or trigger a signal. Okay, so we're going to add a area 2D here. Again, have to give it a shape, collision shape, rectangle, and let's just slide this area up above our box slightly. Okay, and then I'm going to reshape it so that it kind of flattens out right above our block color right. Okay. And I'm going to rename this block area 2D. Okay, and we can just leave the collision shape as is. So as you can see, we have a bit of a boundary. We have a floor, we have the sky, and then we have this little block set up with an area 2D. Now the next thing we need is a couple things for our UI. So we're gonna, as you saw, we're gonna make a button. So what we can do is just node this to our scene. Okay, so I'm gonna add a button. And you see a button comes up and it's in the left corner. So we're going to resize our button just a bit. And then let's move it to the middle of our screens somehow. It doesn't have to be too big, but just so we can use it. Okay. And what I'm going to write in the text is click here. Okay. So now we have a little box, a button, says click here. We don't have to do anything else with that. The next thing we want to add to our signal scene is a label. Now this label, again, as you saw in the demonstration, we want to say game over when the time runs out. So we're going to write game over. Okay, let's resize this. And we're going to make this label a little bit bigger. And then once you resize, let's go ahead and move it over to kind of like the more in the bottom right hand corner. And then if you go over here to the label parameters or properties, okay, we can change a few things. So we're going to go to horizontal align and hit center. And then we're going to go to vertical align and hit center. And then we're going to go down to our control tab, our control folder, and then look into theme overrides. That's the bottom one, bottom option. And let's change the color. So let's enable that, make it black, and then go to font sizes, enable that, and make that 80 pixels. So now we have a great big game over sign. We have a click here button. We have our color. We're almost done. Couple more things. So we need a timer, okay, because we're working on a timer label. So we're going to add a timer. Now you're not going to see that, but it will run. Let's change our wait time to 10 seconds and enable one shot, enable auto start, right? And we want this to start on run. Okay. And I believe that is it for our UI. So we have a button, a label, a timer. The last thing we need to add is a little player. So if you watched my other videos, you know that we're going to add a character. And we're just going to use Godot's built-in icon as our player. Okay, with all characters, we have to give it a shape. Let's make it a rectangle. Okay, and I'm going to move this character body down here in the bottom left corner, kind of where your game starts, and then resize my collision shape a bit. And there's several ways you can do this, but I'm just going fast. And then we're going to finally add our final node, which is a sprite 2D. And we're going to grab our icon.svg, which is in the file system, and drag it into the texture. And we're going to make a few adjustments. So one thing we're going to do is we're going to change the hierarchy and just move the sprite above so we can see our collision shape. So if you put the whatever's above, or I guess collision shape would be above in the layer, but in the hierarchy, if you move it up a level, you will be able to see what's below it. So it's kind of backwards, but something to remember. So let's just resize this because we want this to be on the floor. And then we're going to change our sprite shape to match. Okay. So this is what you should have. You should have a signals node. This is going to be your scene node. We're going to run a couple things there. And then you have a boundary, right? Which basically, or a background, which we've made, which consists of our floor, our imaginary floor, the sky, okay, this little object, this block, okay, and then we have an area 2D, which will detect a signal. We have a button, which will emit a signal, and then a button, which will emit a signal, and a timer, which will emit a signal. Okay, so we're about halfway done. Next thing we need to do is attach some scripts. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our signals 2D and we're going to attach a script. And again, one of the reasons I stress naming is that when you name your scripts, you want individual unique scripts. If you just leave things in node 2D, it's going to do node 2D.gd. And then if you have other nodes, it's going to reference that script. So we want to name these scripts so that name the nodes, prior, so then it will inherit that name in the path when you go to attach a script. Okay, so just a bit of, housekeeping to keep your things in order. So we're going to add signals 2D. That's the first one. Okay, then we're just going to go down our hierarchy list. We're going to go to sky CR. You can also right click to attach a script. We're going to attach a script, sky CR, sky color rect. Okay, we need one for our block color rect, so we're going to attach a script there. Okay, and then we need one for our player, okay, which is a character body 2D. So I am going to rename player and then attach a script and then hit create. Okay, the final thing I want to do is save the scene. So we have an unsaved scene. And again, by saving with the nodes already named, you're going to save yourself a lot of time. So we're going to save that. Okay, so we should have four scripts, and one scene. So we have signal scene, a sky CR, signals 2D player, and block CR. The one change we're going to make before adding signals is just changing our jump velocity on our player script. So make sure it says extends character body 2D at the top. And you can go in and go to, it should be line 5 next to const jump velocity, and just change that to -800, which will allow us to jump. Okay, so let's quickly run this and just see what we have going on. Okay, so you have a character, he can move. Okay, you have the game over, it's still there, and you're able to click this button, but nothing happens. Okay, so we've got the scripts attached, and the final thing that's going to bring this all together is the actual signals. So the first signal that we want to go over is body entered. And what body entered is a signal that is going to detect a body that enters it. Very intuitive how it's written. So let's go back to our 2D. And we can look at our 2D, zoom out a bit, and you can see our area. So what we're trying to say is when the player collides with this area, when this player's collision shape collides with this collision shape, then we want something to happen. And in our case, we want this block to change colors. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to our block area 2D, and then over here next to the inspector, there's a node page which contains all the different signals that are built into Godot that you can connect right away. And so what we want is body entered, right? So we want to look at body entered and then connect. And then it's going to give us a list of places. If you notice, the ones that have scripts, everything else is grayed out. And so we want this body enter to connect to our block CR. And then if you look at the bottom, it's going to say receiver method, which is going to give you the function that's going to be inserted into the script, which is add on block area 2D body entered. Okay, so let's connect. And now you can see that this signal with the green icon, I'm just going to click on that, and then it's going to show us source, block area 2D, what kind of signals being emitted, body entered, and what's the target, block CR. So now that we have that, what we're going to do is just give it a conditional just to help. You don't have to. This is optional, but when you're building a game and there may be other actions happening or other bodies that could be interacting with the area, it's just good practice. So what we're saying is that if the body is a character body 2D, i.e. our player, then we want to change the color. So self.color, and then we're going to reassign the color. Okay. Again, if you've connected everything correctly, you'll still see a green icon. We can delete the ready and process functions because they're just going to return, well, the process function is just going to return a bit of a debugger error. So that helps keep things clean. And we can save this, save your script, and run this. And so when the player lands, the block should change colors. Okay, so that's our first signal. Your first signal. Congratulations. Pat yourself on the back. You've done it. You've done it. All right. Now the next one, we're going to look at our timer. Okay, so let's go to our timer. And again, you can't see anything because the timer works in the background. But if you go over here to the node panel, you can see that the timer has a few options. The one that you're going to use quite often if you're building games in Godot is timeout. Okay. And what we want to do is connect the timeout to our game, our sort of scene code, right? So our signal's 2D. So we're going to go ahead and connect that. Now, what we're trying to do, let me swing back over here, is display game over after 10 seconds, right? So if we look at our script, we have a label, and that label, we have to call this label. We want to call it after 10 seconds, right? So the first thing we need to do is assign a variable that is the label. So we're going to just call it label, okay? And we're going to, if you type it as a keyword or a capital label, so we can say that the label must be an actual label. Look for a label, okay? Then inside of our ready function, we're going to say that the label is, okay, remember it's looking for a specific label, and you can just drag in the label, okay, from your scene hierarchy, the label that we've created. Now, let's say we just decided to rename the label and we called it game over, okay? And we knew it was a label. So what you would need to do is you could either rewrite it, but if you redrag it in, and again, it's going to just show you exactly where it's being referenced in the hierarchy, okay? So we'll just leave it as label equals game over, okay? Because we're calling it label as variable. And then the next thing we need to do in the ready function is turn it off. So we want label.visible equals false, right? So we're going to turn the label off, okay? Skip this process function, and then on timer timeout, what do we want to do? We want label.visible equals true, okay? So again, we've given a variable to Godot saying that this label, okay, or really game over is a label, all right? And then what we're saying is in the beginning, turn it off. If the time runs out, turn it on, okay? We can delete this process function because we're not calling anything every frame. Save our script, okay, and let's run. So in the meantime, we can jump on our block, change this color, and we're going to wait a few more seconds. And game over is displayed. So that's our second signal. Now we have 2 signals created. Okay. Now our final signal is the press signal. And what we want to happen is when we press the click here button, we want to generate a random background in our game. Okay. So every time we click, generate a new random background. So how do we go about doing that? What we're going to do is we're going to go to our button, and if you can see again, we have some signals that we can send out. We're going to look at this pressed, which is in the base button section, okay? We're going to hit connect, and then we're going to go, where do you think? We're going to go to Sky CR because we want to change that color. So we're going to hit connect, and then as you can see at the bottom, there's an on button pressed function. And inside of that, we're going to say self.color, all right, because we're referencing the color. And then every time the button is pressed, we'd like to generate a new color. And so the way to do that is we're going to say randf, okay, randf, and randf. Okay, and make sure we got all of the parentheses right. I think I need one more. Okay, so if you look at this, okay, what we're saying is every time that the button is pressed, these are RGB values. So we want to generate a different, and we could have just done rand F1 and it would have just given us one singular gray value. But we want color value, so we want random, and so it's just going to generate a different value every time you hit the button, okay? So we can delete all of this stuff again. The ready and process function, don't need it. Save, and let's go to 2D and run our game. So we can jump first signal, okay? Oh, look at that. We got a background. Making it dance, and then our time ran out. Okay. So, if this was helpful, make sure you like and subscribe. Again, just trying to give you basic tutorials to get you started, to help you learn the foundations and fundamentals. So, thanks for checking it out.